workers built this country, and all workers in this country deserve dignity and justice. Thank you very much.
In my tradition, in the labor movement, solidarity is a very powerful and common term. Working people through the years have learned that in order to advance the struggle for worker justice and equality, we need to build racial equity. And so only when workers of all colors stand together can we prevail.
Hello, family. Thank you, Jerry, for sharing that video with us. So, hey, everybody, in the words of Pam Rogers, everybody, come on in this house. Everybody, come on in this house. Everybody, come on in this house. Come on in this house. You're welcome here. If you believe immigrant rights are human rights, come on in this house. If you believe that immigrant rights are human rights, come on in this house. If you believe that immigrant rights are human rights, come on in this house. Come on in this house. You're welcome here. Welcome. Bienvenidos. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, sisters, brothers, siblings, comrades, family. To the United Association of Labor Educator, UALE's celebration of the life of our dear beloved brother, Kent Wong, the first president of UALE. And this is the house that Kent helped build. May the work that I have done speak for me. May the work that I have done speak for me. If I fall short of my goal, someone else will take a hold. May the work that I have done speak for me. Please welcome our first speaker for this evening, Elizabeth Pellerito, President of UALE. Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Elise. Thank you to the committee who organized this beautiful, joyful memorial tonight. Thank you to all of you for being here. It's my honor to welcome everyone here. I'm here to tell you a little bit about some of the decisions the board has made in the past few months, but I'll start by saying that in the year 2000, Workers Ed Local 189 and UCLA merged to form UALE, the United Association for Labor Education. And Kent was elected the very first president of UALE. He served from 2000 to 2002. And he also served for a long time on the executive committee of IFWIA, the International Federation of Worker Education Associations. So we're going to hear a lot about Kent's legacy tonight, his legacy of justice, of laughter, of his work with the immigrant community, with workers from every sector all across the board, and the fights that we continue to pick up and fight as we move forward in this work. And in recognition of that, it's my honor to tell you that in February of this year, the board voted unanimously to rename the Lifetime Achievement Award that's awarded at every UALE conference, which happens biennially, to the Kent Wong Lifetime Achievement Award. We couldn't think of a more appropriate way to make sure that Kent's work and his legacy continue to be upheld in the fiber of the organization. The other thing that I'm really excited to announce to all of you is that we have established the UALE Kent Wong Memorial Scholarship to honor Kent's legacy and his work. Kent's work with community, labor, and university advocates helped build a powerful labor movement that was rooted in racial justice and global solidarity. And this scholarship will support individuals from marginalized identities and also folks who are from higher ed, from unions, and folks who are doing that work and not necessarily affiliated with either. And during conference years, that scholarship is going to recognize a student or a young activist whose work carries on the values of power building through organizing, immigrant justice, and political advocacy. They will receive an award at the UALE conference. We will cover their conference registration and hotel. And during non-conference years, it's our hope that the scholarship can also be offered to a labor educator who's developing curriculum that foregrounds those same issues and foregrounds the methodology of popular education. So stay tuned for more information about those awards. We are really, really excited to use the organizational resources to honor folks, particularly our young folks who are so important to our movement. Kent understood that the labor movement was one that was rooted in justice for all workers, regardless of their nationality, their status, where they come from, where they're going. And he fought for a labor education practice that was always grounded in anti-racism and dignity for every worker. And so we are really just so proud and honored to continue to carry on his legacy. If you want to donate to that scholarship fund, all of those funds will go to young activists and labor educators who are carrying on Kent's work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you. And it's so wonderful that this is being created to carry on the legacy of the person who just changed and touched so many lives, including my own. So thank you, Elizabeth. And I want to say a special welcome to Jay Lee, lifelong partner of Kent, wife, and Shelley Wong, Pitt, who's also on here. And they say this: may the children I help raise speak for me. May the children I help raise speak for me. If I fall short of my goal, someone else will take a hold. May the work that Kent and Jay did together will speak right now. So please join me in welcoming Kent's son, 6'2" with dimples too, Ryan Wong, author of Which Side Are You On? Ryan, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for the beautiful music, Elise. Thank you, Jerry, for organizing this. Thank you, Anibel, so much for being the liaison with the family. And on behalf of our family, thank you all so much for being here to celebrate and talk about how we can continue my dad's legacy and work. Actually, our whole family is here. So my brother Robin, my mom Jay, Uncle Marshall, Aunt Shelley, Uncle Tyrone, our whole family to my dad's whole labor family. We're really happy to be here. You know, I should say first that today would have actually been my dad's 70th birthday. His birthday is May 27th. And so we are still in shock and grieving. And at the same time, it feels so important to be in spaces like this where we can reflect and celebrate and share together. So just deep gratitude to all of you for helping us do that as a community. You know, my dad wore many hats, but for almost my entire life, he only had one job, and that was as a labor educator and the director of the UCLA Labor Center. And I want to tell you about being a kid. You know, sometimes my dad would have to take a babysitting shift and he would take me to work. And way back then in the early days, the UCLA Labor Center was just a few offices in this little office building in the middle of Westwood, near UCLA. And we would have this routine where he would take me to work, and in exchange for me being kind of bored as he was in meetings, he would take me to El Pollo Loco for a burrito because we never ate out El Pollo Loco. And he would buy me a Mad magazine at the comic book store next door. And I thought this was a real treat, and Westwood was like a little village. So that was the deal. And we would do this many, many times, especially every summer when I was out of school. But there was a problem with this, which is, I would say to him, Dad, my friends ask me what you do, and why can't you have like a normal job? Why can't you be something like a chemistry professor or, a firefighter? Like, they don't know what it means when I say director of a labor center or a labor educator. But of course, a few years later, he actually got to demonstrate what he does. So one of our family friends, Linda Tubach, actually ran this program, this great program, where she would go to public high schools in Los Angeles and practice collective bargaining. And so she would bring business leaders and labor leaders together. They would all go to a public high school, and we'd divide up into teams of students and do collective bargaining. And my dad often joined her for this, and he was planning to join her also when she came to my high school, Uni High in LA. But I was 16, and the most mortifying thing possible for a 16-year-old would be for your father to come to your class. And so I didn't tell anyone he was coming. The day comes, Linda and her whole team assemble at the front of the classroom, and my friend whips her head around and she goes, Ryan, is that your dad? And that was the day I learned that you cannot escape your genetics. You cannot escape how you look. It was so obvious that he was my dad, looked like me, sounded like me. But of course, that was something I came to appreciate. Over the years, and especially once I got to college, I understood that my dad actually had a very different philosophy of what higher education was than many, many people, which is that he believed that the role of the university was not to be an ivory tower, not to be a place where knowledge is hoarded, but actually a place where resources, knowledge, and power are shared as much as possible to the people who needed it the most. And it took me many, many years to actually see how radical of an idea this was, because it was so different from so many of the models that I saw in my college experience. And what I felt was that I grew up along all these cohorts of students and youth leaders and immigrant youth leaders and young labor leaders over the years who also saw that my dad was saying something different than a lot of people. And I think they really, really appreciated that. And I think that's why when, for example, the first students at UCLA started to break the silence about being undocumented, they went straight to my dad and came up to him after class and said, listen, I've never told anyone besides my family this, but I don't have papers, despite being at UCLA, despite having these stellar grades. And that really transformed my dad in turn, and he made the immigrant youth movement a central part of his life and a central part of the labor movement in general. Just to close out, I want to name a few of the things he was proudest of at the very end. So, way back from that little rented office space in Westwood, decades later, he was so proud of working with folks like Maria Elena Durasso and Larry Frank to establish the UCLA Labor Center's James Lawson Jr. Worker Justice Center, a permanent home for the labor movement, right in the heart of MacArthur Park and all of the labor unions in Los Angeles. And just after that, to secure this major, major funding package for all of the UC's labor centers across California. it was a lifelong dream of his, and I know he would have loved to have seen what would come of that. And I know that his work is done and that legacy stands and is living and will continue to carry on his vision. Another thing I want to say about my dad is all of last year, something interesting about him as we were seeing the rise of authoritarianism, as we were seeing the erosion of civil liberties and the crackdown on immigrants, my dad is very interesting in that he never got despairing. He was never the kind to say, oh, this is so terrible. Oh, I don't know what to do. He actually got energized by situations like this because he saw how much there was to do. And one of the prime examples of that was leading this massive nonviolence training in Los Angeles in response to the ICE raids, where over 1,400 people across sectors, led by labor, gathered for a nonviolence training in the legacy of Dr. King and Reverend James Lawson Jr., one of the largest single nonviolence trainings in American history. And so one of the lessons that we've been talking about in our family is my dad was always about using your power. What power do we have and how can we use it? And I think that idea of always using your power is what allowed him to never fall into despair, to never fall into paralysis, but to always see how much could be done, how much power we do have, and to keep moving forward. So, again, on behalf of our family, just deep appreciation to all of you for being here. And let's carry that love and that work forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. And thanks to the whole family that's here and for the gifts that you all shared with all of us. So, may the students I have taught speak for me. May the students I have taught speak for me. If I fall short of my goal, someone else will take a hold. May the students I have taught speak for me. Nadia Johnson is a former student of Kent's and currently works as a diversity trainer for the California Federation of Teachers. She was unable to join us in person today, but didn't hesitate to send us a video about her work with Kent. So, Jerry, if you're ready to roll, Nadia Johnson.
Hi, my name is India Johnson, and I am a former student of Professor Kent Wong. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to even share a few words about the amazing leader that we lost and the impact that we all know he had on the community, but the one-on-one touch point that he's left with me and many of my classmates during our time at UCLA. I was in Professor Kent Wong's and Professor Reverend Lawson's Nonviolence and Social Movements class in spring of 2018 at UCLA. I cannot even begin to describe, there's not enough words to explain the impact and the trajectory of my life that has changed from taking that one course. I think back to my baby days of organizing, I like to say, and I was really good in politics. I knew how to go into a room and talk to a politician or, negotiate or learn things related to policy. But what I gained from that class was learning about movements, about people power, about united power, and the importance of organizing and turning out masses and activation. And that's when I learned from Professor Kent Wong. Seeing someone like him who was not only part of the UCLA labor movement just growing to what it is, from the center to the Black Worker Center to just immigrant rights, seeing everything that he did and will leave with us was always so inclusive and so intersectional and just guiding the way that he interacted with everybody, which expanded things from my mind. I had always seen things from a political lens, if you say, but going through his class and understanding these social movements while hearing his own institutional knowledge and experience and literal work that he did, that transformed me. That motivated me to expand my mind, to learn more about what does it mean to be an activist? How do I actually get engaged in the community? What does that look like? How do I put my boots on the ground and show up for people? And that's exactly what I got to experience thanks to him. I will never forget my first experience of a strike was the Ask Me strikes at UCLA in 2018. And I had the pleasure and honor, and just even thinking about it again gives me goosebumps, of walking hand in hand with Reverend James Lawson and Professor Kent Wong. I remember they brought it up in class and were inviting students to come and support. And I was like, of course, I'm going to go. And that opportunity is something that, you know, it's been almost 10 years, and I just remember so vividly. And I would say that's really when I started to change as a leader, as an activist, somebody in the labor movement, because I started to understand more, not just from reading the textbooks that he assigned, but his anecdotal stories, again, his institutional knowledge, his actual tangible knowledge, the work that he's done and contributed to the community that he poured back into the classroom when he shared with us. And that's what was so amazing about him, is that he treated everybody like they were a friend, like somebody who he just wanted to help and support. And the last time that I really got to speak with him is because I was torn on a decision for going back to graduate school or not. And I reached out to him. I knew he would help me. I knew he could guide me. I knew he could offer the best support and advice from a genuine place of wanting to see me succeed, along with every other person that he's interacted with or any other student he's had. I'm blessed to have had my degree already for Columbia University and my master's, but thinking about going back to get my PhD or EDD, and he was the first person I was like, I need to call. I need to talk to him. I need to see what he thinks about returning back into the space and how to balance being in academia and still being involved in the activist movements and labor and everything. But I now am a senior program director for anti-racism and social justice at the California Faculty Association. So we are a union that represents the faculty at the Cal State University system. And I honestly credit that class so much because that's what really opened my eyes up to the labor movement. And without him, I don't know if I would have been as successful as I am, because he really, again, just turned a switch on in my brain for re-looking or revisiting about how the world should be seen, how I could be experiencing, how I could contribute to pour this community in different ways. And so it's surreal that he is not here anymore. Sorry to change the mood, but I'm just so grateful. I genuinely am so grateful to have experienced him, to have experienced Professor Reverend Lawson in the same class teaching us. Like, I'm sorry, I do think I'm better than y'all because I got to experience both of them. They were amazing, and taking that class and experiencing Professor Kent Wong and all of it was just something that you could never pay money for. That's just like an experience you have to just have had. And before I get emotional, I'm so grateful for him, for UCLA giving me the opportunity to take that class. It just, all of that has come out of it, and all the lives that he's transformed. And he was incredible. And I know his work is gonna live on, but it's sad, that he may not physically be here to see it, but he knows what mark he left on this world. I have no doubt of that. And the rest of us, the students like me and the people who knew him and community members, we will carry that on. And that's what's important, is that even though he may not physically be here, his spirit, his work, his energy, everything is always going to be here. So thank you again for giving me the chance to speak. I am just so grateful to be able to share my words and be able to say that I was a student of Professor Kent Wong. So, thanks.
Yes, indeed. The lives that he touched and the minds that he touched. May the friends that I have made speak for me. May the friends that I have made speak for me. If I fall short of my goal, someone else will take a hold. May the friends that I have made speak for me. Our next speaker, Greg Mancios, is a longtime friend and buddy of Kent Wong, Dean of the City University of New York School of Labor and Urban Studies. Greg, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Elise, and it's a real honor I'm privileged to be with you to talk about Kent. I recently wrote an essay for New Labor Forum about Kent's extraordinary accomplishments, his contributions to the labor movement, to SLU, to the New Labor Forum, and all the many institutions and movements he helped build. But tonight, I want to take a slightly different approach. I want to talk about Kent as a connoisseur. I took at least 8 trips with Kent to Vietnam and to China. And anyone who spent time with Kent knows that he was a connoisseur of good food. He examined it, he thought about it, he identified it, he felt it, and he enjoyed it so much. But Kent was not a connoisseur only of food, but a connoisseur of life. And I remember on one trip, our dear friend, Ben, the director of international affairs for the VGCL, the Vietnamese Trade Union Federation, invited us to his home. So we decided to go to the local florist and buy some flowers, but not just any flowers. Kent was particular. He interviewed the flowers. He discussed them, he inspected them, he identified them by name. He assembled a bouquet with more deliberation than some unions use to endorse candidates. Me, I just thought the red ones looked nice, That was me, ugh, Another time we were in Beijing, and on the day we were leaving, Kent wanted to bring back some tea. I think it was for Jay. Somehow Kent found a tiny tea house nearby, packed floor to ceiling with jars of tea from all over China. And before I knew it, we were sitting on a very low stool while the owner presented us with a vast array of teas and an elaborate ritual. Kent explained to me that, you have to take 3 sips. One sip to get the initial flavor, a second one to explore the body and texture of the tea, and the third, for the lingering aftertaste. And I remember saying to Dee, how do you know this stuff? I'm still trying to figure out wine tasting 101. But Kent he was a real Renaissance man. And I'll tell you one more short story, and that was when Kent wanted to bring a singing bowl home. I thought it was for Robin, but it may have been for Ryan. But those metallic bowls, you rub the rim with a wooden mallet and it makes a long hypnotic wah sound. We spent half a day searching for a bowl with the perfect sound. To me, they all sounded the same, but Kent always took his time, stared at it carefully, was so pensive about every deliberation, and then he'd pronounce his verdict. And, this one is warm and raw and earthy and with an earthy sound. And this other one has a swirling, simmering, refined sound. He wouldn't give up until one of those bowls said, "I'm the one." And he bought it, and I marveled at it. I was still, stuck on Wine 101. I share those stories because they bring back such fond memories of a very dear friend, and also because they were typical of Kent as we all knew him in the labor movement and beyond. He had a rare capacity to notice what others missed, to see beauty and meaning and possibility and distinction when others might not. And perhaps his greatest gift was the same discerning eye when it came to people, organizations, and social movements. Kent could recognize courage. He could recognize integrity. That's why he so admired the Reverend James Lawson. He could see emerging leaders. That's why he nurtured and inspired so many young activists and guided them to positions of leadership. He saw their promise, nurtured their confidence, and helped them find their voice. That is also one of the reasons he was such an extraordinary labor educator. Kent understood that labor education was not simply about teaching history, law, economics, or organizing skills, important as all of that is. For Kent, labor education was about helping people see themselves differently. It was about helping workers, students, immigrants, and young organize recognize their own power and to step up to leadership. And Kent saw something else, that the future of the labor movement depended on seeing who was already leading. Long before many others understood it, Kent saw the central role of immigrant workers. He saw that immigrant workers were not on the margin of the labor movement, but at the heart of its renewal. And he used his discerning talents with UCLA, the UALE's predecessor. I first met Kent 3 decades ago, more than 3 decades ago, at a UCLA conference. And I thought that was going to be both my first and last conference, because that was a time when the organization functioned as pretty much the educational arm of the AFL-CIO. And it was a time when the mildest of criticism of the federation or unions was tantamount to heresy. But as we all know, Kent was not afraid of heresy. He helped lead an effort to reconstitute the organization, and he called me and so many others personally to wean us back to an organization that encouraged both diversity and a healthy dose of debate. Kent brought the same clarity to international solidarity. He challenged the labor movement when it blamed workers in other countries for the decisions of corporations and the failures of trade policy. He warned against nationalism, protectionism, and racism. He insisted that the real issue was not China or Vietnam or any other country, but corporate power dividing and exploiting workers across borders. That was Kent's internationalism. It wasn't sentimental, it was strategic. If corporations operate globally, workers must organize and build power globally. Kent believed in worker-to-worker and union-to-union solidarity, not as an abstract principle, but as a practical necessity. And it was his willingness to say hard things to the labor movement because he loved it enough to demand more from it. He challenged their anti-immigration politics. He challenged anti-Asian racism. He challenged Cold War thinking. He challenged narrow definitions of who belonged in the labor movement and who counted as a leader. But he did all this with a generosity of spirit that was remarkable. Kent was a builder. He built relationships. He built programs. He built organizations. He built bridges across unions and universities, worker centers, and immigrant communities. Asian American organizations, undocumented youth movements in the labor movement across borders. And he mentored constantly, as you heard before, students, organizers, scholars, union leaders, community activists. So many people were touched by Kent's encouragement. He had a way of making people feel that their work mattered, that their stories mattered, that they had something to contribute. He could see promise in people before they could fully see it in themselves. And that, too, is what it meant for Kent to be a connoisseur. He did not just appreciate what was already fully formed. He recognized what was emerging. He recognized that young organizers finding the voice. He recognized the student who might become a movement leader. He recognized the worker whose lived experience and moral authority would be a contribution to the labor movement. So the question for all of us is not how we remember Kent, but how we continue his work. To honor Kent is to place immigrant workers, young workers, and workers of color at the center of labor's future. It is to confront racism inside and outside the labor movement. It's to resist nationalism and build international solidarity. It's to treat labor education as movement building. It's to build institutions that are accountable to workers and communities, and it's to mentor the next generation of this with the same generosity, seriousness, and love that Kent offered so freely. Kent was a dear friend, a brilliant educator, a movement strategist, an organizer, and a visionary. But he was also, in the most beautiful sense, a connoisseur of food, flowers, tea, music, friendship, struggle, leadership, and life itself. He noticed what mattered. He cherished what was beautiful. He nurtured what was possible, and he helped so many of us see more clearly. as the best tribute we can offer is to continue building the kind of movement Kent believed in: multinational, multiracial, internationalist, democratic, worker-centered, kind, generous, and bold. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you very much. May the delegations I organize speak for me. May the delegations I organize speak for me. If I fall short of my goal, someone else will take a hold. May the delegations I organize speak for me. How many of you have been on an international delegation with Kent Wong? Please raise your hand. Yes, I see you out there. And I had the privilege of being on one of those delegations, and what a phenomenal experience it was. And I'm so grateful. I'm particularly grateful to our good friend, Howard Kling. Howard was a member of one of the delegations when I went to Vietnam with Kent, and Howard documented the visit, and he documented a couple of them. Howard Kling is a filmmaker, organizer, and former director of the University of Minnesota Labor Education Service. And Howard created this edited segment of a video entitled "Building Solidarity and Friendship" about the 2016 U.S. labor delegation to Vietnam. Please enjoy.
The extent of the commercialization in the two cities that we've been in the last couple of days is overwhelming to me. I am, the English have a word, gobsmacked. I'm gobsmacked by it.
Vietnam has made incredible strides in rebuilding their economy and strengthening their society and culture and playing a very important role globally. It has only been in the last 20 or so years that they have successfully overcome all of the incredible, not just war crimes, but economic crimes that the U.S. committed against the Vietnamese people.
It's mind-opening. We're just trying to understand it's not just another country, but it's an entire culture and an economy that's built around the concept of doing right by working people. And then there's a labor movement that is part of an entire way of thinking about society.
We've been to a number of meetings with labor unions, and I'm very impressed by the people who gave presentations. We also went to a factory where they just had, seemed like the most remarkable benefits.
Both the leather factory where they made the purses and then the shoe factory. I was rather amazed at the level of detail of the kind of benefits and the protections, for the workers. They're serious about changing and improving the lives of their workers, but we know that there's those tensions that exist.
It's only been in the last 20 years that there has been the opening up of the economy and where foreign capital has come to Vietnam. And you see the impact of that, both positive and negative.
It's been complicated. I think my whole worldview has changed in terms of how we have been consistently fighting for labor rights in the U.S. and coming here and visiting a unionized workforce in a factory, yet still seeing the changes in terms of income inequality.
The global supply chain process is about squeezing costs out. And a major part of that is squeezing down the cost of labor. And how much of that economic dynamic is Vietnam going to be able to withstand? How much are they going to allow? And if they allow too much of it, doesn't that begin to erode their own definition of a socialist-oriented market of economy?
It's January 15th, 2016. We are wrapping up a very powerful one-week journey in Vietnam with a dozen labor leaders and labor educators from different parts of the United States. And this is a project that has been going on for many years to try to strengthen relations between unions and workers in Vietnam and in the United States. And I think that labor educators can actually play a very important role in this exchange. During this trip, we visited the Vietnam Trade Union University in Hanoi, and we also visited the Ton Duc Tong University in Ho Chi Minh City, which is affiliated with the Vietnam unions. So we got a first-hand look at the field of labor education in Vietnam and their tremendous commitment to develop and promote the leadership of a new generation of Vietnamese union leaders.
Vietnam has open economy for 30 years, and the economy will be open more. There will be a lot of changes in terms of economic policies. And in the future, we have a younger generation, so their thinking change. And with the internet, with the more exchange, so it also affects the thinking. So the challenge for our country is how the younger generation, they think more about the development for the people, not development for economic purpose only. And that is the most challenges for this generation to pass to the next generation.
In the last few years, there's been a breakthrough, and we have now recruited 4 U.S. labor educators to teach in a labor college here in Vietnam. That's never happened before, and the 4 individuals have done extraordinary work in teaching faculty, teaching students, and learning more about the Vietnamese labor relations system. At the same time, they've been able to introduce curriculum and articles and knowledge from a U.S. labor education perspective, which is very much valued here in Vietnam.
We are leaving a translated handbook for teaching labor education in Vietnam that is a compilation of some of the handouts that we wrote while we were there, and we hope that that will be useful to them and to the other people doing labor education in Vietnam.
And it's just been terrific because we have found that the young people here that we've been teaching at the university level are so open to learning and hearing about new skills, practicing them, and getting a grasp about things in the USA.
I think it's really amazing how much things have changed and grown in terms of the relationships between the US and Vietnamese labor communities in the past 7 years since I've last been here and participated in the previous delegation. So it just gives me a lot of hope, and I wanted to really see what role that I can play in supporting continuing dialogue and support and exchange between the US and Vietnamese labor movements.
The annual meeting of the United Association for Labor Education, which is our professional organization in the United States and Canada, passed a resolution supporting a bridge-building labor education exchange between the trade union universities, the three union-related universities in Vietnam, and our membership in the United States and Canada.
Increasingly, the economy of Vietnam and the United States is more and more integrated. And the corporations operating in US and in Vietnam are in contact with each other continually. The governments of US and Vietnam are in contact with each other on a regular basis. And yet, workers and unions are not. And that's a problem that we need to address.
Solidarity and partnership, there is no end of the earth. You know, it keeps going all the way around. That for us not to talk to those organizations here that are trying to grapple and improve the lives of their workers is if not ridiculous, it's suicidal. I mean, why would you not join with somebody who shares a similar pain and a similar mission?
Kent Wong presente. May the people I have loved speak for me. May the people I have loved speak for me. If I fall short of my goal, someone else will take a hold. May the work that I have done speak for me. Our final speaker of this evening is Ligaya Domingo, former president of the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance, APALA, and the senior racial justice director for SEIU Healthcare 1199 Northwest, and a member of the delegation to the Philippines in 2025. Please join me in welcoming Ligaya Domingo. Ligaya, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. I felt so compelled to be here tonight because Kent would often do many, many things to be there for many of us. And so Kent drew me to be here. I wanted to start off with sharing a photograph from our delegation. So here is our photograph. And this is us at the People Power Monument in Manila in the Philippines. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the delegation in a few minutes, but I wanted to just start with sharing this photograph of amazing folks that were in Kent's life for various different reasons, some of whom he mentored, some of whom were labor leaders who were meeting Kent for the first time. He had a very impactful presence on our trip to the Philippines, which I'm going to share with you about in a few minutes. So I met Kent about 30 years ago when I first started in the labor movement. And so it's been pretty difficult for me to find the words to express the gratitude that I have for Kent, because he was just such an amazing person who gave so much to me as a person, as well as to our movement. His contributions to the labor movement, to the social and racial justice movement, to immigrant rights, and the development of so many students, activists, and leaders are immeasurable. I met Kent in 1996 through APALA, and from that time forward, he supported me, he lifted me up, and he did so much to help to ensure that the legacy of my father, Silmy Domingo, and his comrade, Jean Viernes, were never forgotten. As the founding president of the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance, Kent held an important vision of how the labor movement could change. And he pushed to make change until he died. The labor movement has not been a very hospitable place for Asian Pacific Islanders or for young people, or people of color or women, as we all know. Kent helped to ensure that we as Asian Pacific Islanders and young people had a home in APALA. Kent helped to build a community for API folks in the labor movement. He also deeply believed in intergenerational movement building and empowering young people to lead. He helped to create space and ensure that there was a pathway for young people to feel a part of the movement. I feel confident that without his vision and leadership, I wouldn't be in the labor movement, and so many of us wouldn't. He helped us to see that we mattered. International solidarity has been one of the founding principles of APALA and an important part of Kent's contribution to our movement around the world. Kent fostered worker-to-worker connections across all oceans, including China, Okinawa, Vietnam, Mexico, and the Philippines. I was proud to be able to help to lead a 10-day labor delegation to the Philippines last year with 13 labor leaders from across the country. The labor delegation was over 50 years in the making. It was a dream of my father, Somi Domingo, and his comrade, Jean Viernes, who were murdered by the Marcos regime within a month of passing a resolution at the International Longshore Warehouse Union Convention in May of 1981. Their dream was to investigate the working conditions and labor rights abuses in the Philippines. Our delegation realized that vision, which I was proud to lead. We were honored for Kent to help us to organize and join us for the delegation. He went with me to meet with the presidents of international unions and the AFL-CIO to both talk about the delegation and to help rebuild the relationships with APALA. That meant a lot to me, that he took his personal time to do that and to support and mentor me. On the delegation, he helped to inspire workers who we met from all across various different sectors of work across the Philippines. At times, I was very emotional on that trip and couldn't speak, and I could always rely on Kent to speak when I needed him to. Kent was a leader and mentor to workers all around the world, and his passing is a great loss to our movement. I hope I and we as a movement can continue his vision of a movement with a foundation of solidarity across borders and continue to bring multiracial and intergenerational organizing into the labor movement. Kent's calm yet impassioned way of leading will also be a grounding force and memory to me. We owe so much to Kent's leadership. Our hearts grieve due to his recent passing. May he rest in power.
Thank you, Lagaya. Thank you, thank you, thank you. May the work that I have done speak for me. May the work that I have done speak for me. If I fall short of my goal, someone else will take a hold. And may the work that I have done speak for me. I know that many of you out there have as many wonderful stories to share about your work, your time that you spent with, by, and working in all kinds of ways together with Kent Wong.
How can we come out of this program understanding Kent's impact on us and his approach as a call to action? And how do we see his spirit imbuing the work in our lives as we go forward? What you're taking from us being together tonight, today, reflecting on Kent's legacy in the world and in our lives and what that's going to mean for us going forward. Anybody can start.
Hi, family.
So we had a question. Hi, Elise. Can anyone tell us how Kent and Reverend Lawson met?
Good question.
I can answer that. My father and mother were organizing a public anti-war event in commemoration of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, anti-nuclear, pro-peace, and invited Reverend Lawson to speak and represent the faith community. That was in the 1980s. That was the first time they met.
Okay. Wow. Thank you, Ryan. Are there any other questions?
Maureen.
So I'm raising my hand just to say that I had a wonderful 10 minutes with another Wong. It was Kent's sister, Shelley, and she shared with me that she was on a delegation in February to Palestine. And it's a family affair. I mean, really a beautiful thing that they did there. A delegation to Palestine, keeping protests up in the West Bank.
Thank you, Maureen.
There's Shelley. Hi. Yeah, that was a beautiful story. I appreciated meeting you.
Tess, good to see you, Tess.
Hi, Tess.
Vivian Price was in the middle of telling us something, and I'm going to assume it was something great and ask if she could finish it.
Fair enough.
Okay, to finish the story, I was saying that Kent was somebody I could turn to when I found myself in the corner, when the administration was shutting us down from doing something in our program. But in this case, we had a large event where 1,000 people were coming to campus, and it was in 2011 during the height of Occupy. And my administration said, you can't do this event unless you pay lots and lots of money for insurance. So I asked Kent what to do. What should I do? And his answer was, find the person that's the most senior in your campus who you think will listen to you, and let them know that this is happening and that it's counter to the benefit of the school. And I did. I took the leap of faith that somebody would listen to me because Kent inspired me to open up and assume that leadership. And they backed down. And we were able to hold our event, and nobody shut us down. And that was not the only time that Kent gave me great advice about speaking truth to power, about making space for other people to take leadership. So thanks a lot for asking me to complete that story.
Thank you, Vivian. Thank you. Thank you for your good work on this committee to organize this. Oh, Shelley, yeah. Auntie.
Thank you for your question. It's still so raw for me. Kent was here a year ago. He came to DC and he was involved in like a million meetings as usual. And he came to my house where we were getting ready for a Palestine gathering in the home. And he stepped in and started cooking breakfast. And we had some visitors from South Africa that were here in our home. And you know, Kent had a Zoom call and he was on his way to the airport. And it was just typical. He would just be here and help out, cook, meet the people, you know, but it's hard to realize that he's gone because he was involved in so many things. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you.
May the work that I have done speak for me. You can sing with me if you want. May the work that I have done speak for me. If I fall short of my goal, someone else will take a hold. May the work that I have done speak for me. In thinking about what I want to say today about my dear brother Kent, I thought about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and what he said on February 4th of 1968, 2 months before his death. King wrote, quote, "If any of you are around when I meet my day, I don't want a long funeral. If you get somebody to deliver the eulogy, tell them not to talk too long." And I did promise Jerry I would not go on. Dr. King went on to say, "I'd like someone to say that day that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to give his life serving others. I'd like for someone to say that day that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to love somebody. I can say on this day that Kent Wong came into this world, that he tried to give his life serving others. I can say on this day that Kent Wong tried to love a whole bunch of somebodies and succeeded in reaching around the globe to touch uncountable lives. As we grieve and mourn the passing of our dear son, brother, father, uncle, cousin, comrade, and friend, Kent, we know that he is at peace and his soul is rested. As the writer said, we need to grieve the ones we've lost, not to sustain our connection to suffering, but to sustain our connection to love. Let us sustain our connection to all of Kent's family, to his wonderful, beautiful wife, Jay, and this time of bereavement. Let us reach out to each other, not only at sad times, but in good times as well. The best way to honor Kent's spirit is to live life like it's golden, like Kent did, right to the end, and fight like hell for the living. This is a poem I modified called We Remember Them. At the rising of the sun and its going down, at the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, at the opening of the buds and the rebirth of spring, at the blueness of the skies and the warmth of summer, at the rustling of the leaves and the beauty of the autumn, at the beginning of the year and when it ends, when we are weary and in need of strength, when we are lost and sick at heart, when we have decisions that are difficult to make, when we have joy we crave to share, when we have achievements that are based on his, and for as long as we live, he too will live. We remember you, Kent Wong. Rest in peace.
We remember Kent.
When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. Yet what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But as Kent so well understood, together, all of us together, are stronger than any of us individually. The union makes us strong.
Jerry, thank you so much for organizing for all of
It's a deep joy and honor and just a deep sense of appreciation being here with everyone and being in a space where we are taking in Kent and what he meant to all of us.